If you are capable of understanding the words I'm speaking right now, chances are you're conscious. And that makes you rather special, since the vast majority of things in our universe lack consciousness. But you've been conscious for so much of your life that you probably take it for granted. You're used to it, and you don't realize how weird human consciousness is. Consciousness, of course, is your internal awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, your experiences of the external world, and so on. Seems pretty straightforward. But whether you try to examine it through the lens of biology or psychology or philosophy, things get very confusing very quickly. Now, on the one hand, consciousness is foundational. It's required even for what we're doing right now. In order to ponder our place in the universe and to ask difficult questions and to desire answers and to find certain explanations satisfying or unsatisfying, we need our human consciousness. We can't do what we're doing right now without it. So we know that whatever it is, we've got it, and that it's important. But on the other hand, trying to figure out exactly what consciousness is, how we got it, how it works, that discussion leads to serious difficulties. The main dividing line here is between people who believe that consciousness can ultimately be explained in terms of the physical workings of our brains, and people who believe that consciousness cannot ultimately be explained in terms of the physical workings of our brains. What I find most interesting about this discussion is that even as students are being assured by their teachers that the experts have consciousness all figured out, a bunch of neurons firing, the experts are admitting that they have absolutely no clue what's going on. And this is causing some people who used to think that consciousness is simply particles interacting in your brain to doubt that position and to start looking for other explanations. Let's consider two examples: Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, and Adam Savage, the MythBuster. We'll start with Dr. Peterson.
No one knows how life arose. No one knows anything about consciousness.
Yeah.
Not the least. It's a byproduct of neural activity. It's why isn't your solar plexus conscious then?
Peterson mocks the standard explanation. The standard explanation is that consciousness is just a byproduct of neural activity. Your solar plexus is called the solar plexus because nerves radiate from it like light radiates from the sun. Why isn't your solar plexus conscious if consciousness is a byproduct of neural activity?
Right? You've got neurons galore. There's more neurons in your autonomic nervous system than there are in your central nervous system. It's not conscious. It's not neural activity per se. And most neural activity in your cerebral cortex isn't conscious. What the hell is consciousness?
So you can't just say neural activity and pretend that this explains consciousness. At the very least, you'd have to explain why this neural activity over here gives rise to consciousness, while all this other neural activity doesn't. And some of you are thinking, well, that's exactly what we'll do. We'll explain why the neural activity here gives rise to consciousness, while other neural activity doesn't. But again, this leads to some serious problems. Materialists believe that awareness, thoughts, emotions, hopes, decisions, and so on are all just physical states in the brain. But it doesn't seem like beliefs or thoughts can be physical brain states because beliefs or thoughts have properties that physical things don't have. For instance, my beliefs can be true or false. It makes no sense to say that an arrangement of particles in my brain is true or false. This arrangement of particles is true, but this arrangement of particles is false. What would that even mean? I have thoughts that are about other things. It makes no sense to say that this pattern of neurons right here is about something else. I can have a thought about a grilled cheese sandwich. I can't have a pattern of neurons about a grilled cheese sandwich. If a scientist examines my brain, he might learn all kinds of things about my brain that I don't know. But he'll never learn more about my mind than I know. If a scientist wants to know what's in my brain, he can give me an MRI scan. If he wants to know what's in my mind, he has to ask me. So even though the mind and the brain are closely linked, they have different features and different properties. So how can they be the same thing? Perhaps we need a better definition.
The hell's consciousness? It's the Spirit of God that what would you say, broods upon the
face of the waters.
That's
baby.
right. That's what consciousness is.
Yeah.
That's as good a definition as any. In fact, it's the best definition I've ever seen.
Genesis 1:2. The Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Peterson likes that as a definition of consciousness. The Spirit is hovering over the material to bring order to chaos. Not very precise if you're looking for a clear scientific definition of consciousness, but I think that's the point. You're not going to get a clear scientific materialist definition of consciousness because whatever it is, it goes beyond the material. So the best definition we have may be something like,
it's the Spirit of God that what would you say, broods upon the
face of the waters.
That's
baby.
right. That's what consciousness is.
Yeah.
Now for Adam Savage of MythBuster's fame. Savage used to work with the so-called new atheists. He even spoke at the 2012 Reason Rally. The Reason Rallies were like Comic-Con for atheists to cosplay as people who are smarter than everyone else. So they'd all get together and brag about how, unlike dumb religious people, atheists test their beliefs and only go where the evidence points.
Testable, provable phenomena and the predictions they allow, big and small, brought me here in front of you today. And they will take me back to my family when I am done.
Testable, provable phenomena. That's what gets things done. Unlike all your religious delusions.
Everything that we have that makes our lives possible exists because human beings have tested the things they found in their surroundings, made predictions based on those tests, and then improved upon them.
We test, we make predictions, and we make improvements. You got that, religious people?
This is reason, the human capacity to make sense of the world.
Woo! Woo! We're the champions of reason! But remember his definition of reason, the human capacity to make sense of the world. Reason, according to MythBuster Adam Savage, is the human capacity to make sense of the world. Hold that thought.
As Neil deGrasse Tyson says, facts are true whether or not you believe them.
Woo! Woo! He quoted Neil deGrasse Tyson! That's an atheist! Facts are true! Take that, religiotards!
I have concluded through careful empirical analysis and much thought that somebody is looking out for me, keeping track of what I think about things, forgiving me when I do less than I ought.
Is it God? Is he about to say God?
Giving me strength to shoot for more than I think I'm capable of. I believe they know everything that I do and think, and they still love me, and I've concluded after careful consideration that this person keeping score is me.
Ah, and here we thought he was going to say God. Well, now you know what it was like to be at a Reason rally. Yeah! When the speaker says science or reason, that's when I yell, woo! That means I'm more smarter than you. My goodness. 3.7 billion years ago, a clown emoji formed by chance in the primordial soup. After millions of generations of mutation and selection, that clown emoji became a rally, the Reason Rally. But that was Adam in 2012. It's 2024 now, and Adam no longer rolls with the new atheists.
Nathaniel Saltzman wants to know, would you be willing to share your current outlook on the grand mysteries of life? I recall times in the past when you've been an outspoken religious skeptic, i.e. atheist, and then later you distanced yourself from that label. That's true, because too many people were being jerks.
You went to rallies whose only purpose was to say, we're smart and other people are dumb, and you finally realized that they were a bunch of jerks?
Well, the skeptics movement itself sort of devolved into several factions.
Nothing devolves quite like an atheist movement.
And now more recently, I've noticed you quoting people like Ram Dass here in the live streams. Are you getting more mystical as you get older? No. First of all, no.
There have been multiple gurus named Ram Dass, so I'm not sure which one he's referring to, but let's just say he's not talking about a scientist here.
It's true. I no longer say atheist because it's actually still defining myself in terms of an impression of a god. Atheist, non-god.
He no longer considers himself an atheist because he regards atheism as a position on the existence of God, and he doesn't affirm that position.
As a scientist, I can't know that something doesn't exist. That's an impossible thing to know. I can't know if there's a consciousness that tipped the first domino over. So that places me in the agnostic camp, I believe.
He's no longer an atheist. He's an agnostic. He doesn't know. That's a small step in the right direction.
I jokingly refer to myself as a New Testament agnostic because I can't know, and I believe I agree with pretty much everything Jesus says in the New Testament. It's hard to argue with his lovely philosophy on people.
He's a New Testament agnostic. That is an interesting position. He doesn't mean that he's an agnostic about the New Testament. He's an agnostic about the existence of God, but he otherwise agrees with the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament.
I have always been incredibly scientifically minded. If you tell me a ghost story, I am going to think about ways in which your impression of what you remember might be wrong.
Same page here. I believe in the supernatural, but that doesn't mean I believe everything anyone thinks is supernatural. And so, if you told me you saw a ghost, I'd be pretty skeptical about that, and I would look for other explanations.
I am not getting more mystical as I get older, but I am more fascinated by the absolute miracle of our sentience, of our ability to know ourselves and to look out into the world and understand things at these meta levels that the cells in here somehow do.
Two important points there. He says he's fascinated by the absolute miracle of our sentience. He's referring to consciousness. There's something really amazing about it. But then he says that it's the cells in our brains that are somehow doing it. Given what he's about to say in a few moments, he doesn't seem to believe that it's merely the cells in our brains.
And the AI, the advent of AI in the last couple of years has only served to strengthen to me the mystery of what consciousness is. It seems to me the most central mystery.
How would the advent of AI deepen the mystery of consciousness? I thought we were getting closer and closer to something like human consciousness. Well, think about it. We've got very intelligent people with very fancy degrees in multi-million-dollar labs around the world, working tirelessly to improve AI, hoping that after many, many years of hard work, they'll end up producing something like human consciousness. But human consciousness happened on its own by nature? And if a team in some lab somehow manages to create an AI that's conscious and self-aware, like in sci-fi movies, that team will win the Nobel Prize for doing something that already happened on its own by nature? Isn't there something totally insane about some of the smartest people in the world spending countless hours and endless trunks of money to accomplish something that supposedly just happened on its own? Hence, AI only deepens the mystery.
There are some physicists working on the problem of consciousness, trying to incorporate it into physics. That's a fascinating one to me.
Notice he said physicists, not neuroscientists. Neuroscientists study the brain. Why is he bringing up physicists who study physics? I read about this several years ago in the context of near-death experiences. There are numerous cases in medical journals of people who are clinically dead, showing no brain activity at all, being brought back to life and reporting that they had conscious experiences while they were dead, thoughts, feelings, desires, and so on. Since people with no brain activity can apparently still be conscious, it seems like consciousness goes beyond brain activity. Certain physicists, even some important physicists, have been trying to figure out if there's some quantum level of consciousness that might hold together and function even if the brain at the macro level isn't functioning. The takeaway for our discussion is that there are physicists who are working on the problem of consciousness because they recognize that the story that we're all told is probably false.
If you held me over a chasm and asked me to tell you what I believe, I kind of, as I get older, I kind of ascribe more to what the Buddhists have been saying all along, which is that consciousness is a single thing and we are all different aspects of it.
Consciousness is a single thing, and we're all different aspects of it. We've all got a little part of the one grand consciousness. Now, he obviously doesn't mean that there's one giant brain and that our brains are all little parts of that one giant brain. He obviously doesn't mean that there's one giant network of neurons and that we each get a little section of that giant network of neurons. What's he saying? He's saying that consciousness is something very, very different from what we're told in science classes, and that he agrees with Buddhists, not with scientists.
So no, I don't think I'm getting more mystical as I get older. I think I'm getting more articulate about my mysticism as I get older.
He's not getting more mystical. He's getting more articulate about his mysticism. But that means he's a mystic to some extent, right? Remember all that stuff he said earlier about testable, provable phenomena? Remember when he defined reason as the human capacity to make sense of the world? Reason is supposed to make sense of the world. But when it comes to consciousness, Adam the MythBuster sides with Buddhists and admits that he's a mystic. In a weird way, he's still being scientific because he's recognizing that a scientific hypothesis, the hypothesis that consciousness is just a byproduct of neural activity, is failing. He's recognizing that the story we're all told in school doesn't actually make sense of the world. In other words, he busted another myth, a myth he wasn't even trying to bust. And so he's forced to look elsewhere for the truth, even if the truth turns out to be a bit mystical. I would agree with Adam Savage about there being some ultimate consciousness, but my conclusion would be a bit different. I'd put it like this. If the materialistic, naturalistic view of the world were true, human consciousness would not exist, because the only explanations naturalists can appeal to are particles, energy, and natural forces. But human consciousness is inexplicable in these terms. Theists, on the other hand, believe in a God, our creator, who's immaterial, invisible, rational, creative, and self-aware. Since the human mind is immaterial, invisible, rational, creative, and self-aware, human consciousness fits quite nicely into a theistic framework, where God creates not only a world of physical bodies, but also a world of immaterial souls.